everybody, welcome back. Here we are in our fourth week of our hips sequence or hip series, and today we're going to focus on hips and emotion with a stronger focus even still on our psoas muscles. So we talk about this about once a year, and we're going to dive deeply into it after our breathing exercise. So two options here. You can come to a comfortable seated position to begin finding your breath, or you can come onto your back. The second set of poses that we'll be doing will be done on our back. So if you want to just settle up on your back, go ahead and get comfortable in a savasana type pose. If you're feeling a little bit tired and maybe sitting up will be good to help you get you into your practice, then maybe come to a seated position. So let's go ahead and come to whichever feels a little better for you, either sitting up or laying down. Let's all bring our palms face up towards the sky, and collectively we'll take a nice big breath. Inhaling through the nose, and let's release it. Open mouth, sigh it out. Two more times. Inhaling positivity, inhaling good. Exhaling anything that no longer serves us. And one more time. Inhaling. Open mouth, exhale out. All right, continue to elongate your breath. Eyes are closed, body is calm. Tuning into that breath, seeing how it feels in your body as you, for maybe the first time today, bring your consciousness into that inhale and exhale. A couple things to remember as you observe your breath and lengthen that breath. We want the inhale and exhale to be equivalent. We want them to last the same amount of time. As you inhale and draw the breath deeply into your body, we're aiming to get that breath down into the diaphragm. So past the collarbones, past the rib cage, down into the diaphragm. There should be a small pause in between the inhale and exhale, allowing the body to retain the breath, which will help us get a fuller, deeper breath in time. And then again, the exhale should be slow and steady, not rushed. The key to a big, full inhale is a big, full exhale. So make sure that you complete that thought, the exhale, before you pause and come back to an inhale. Also want to be conscious and aware of where the breath is flowing. So as you draw that breath in through the tip of the nose, notice where the breath goes. Those pathways that have been carved out for you throughout your day, those are the pathways that the breath is naturally going to take. And as we continue to work on our breath through pranayama exercises, we will be able to deepen that breath and change the pathways so that we can bring more nourishment into our bodies. So steadying our internal gaze, closing out any external stimuli, drawing everything into the internal landscape of your body as we lengthen and observe our breath. Now, before we move forward, continue to move your breath through the body, but now find a full body scan. We'll start at the crown of the head and slowly work our way down to the soles of our feet, observing each part of our body, taking inventory of how that part feels, trying to bring some softness into that area of the body before moving on to the next. Just taking a mental note of how each part of our body feels as we come onto our mat. Taking your time to get there. Once you've completed your full body scan, if you would like to participate in this week's pranayama, we'll go ahead and take our right hand. So even from a laying down, a supine position, you can take your right hand. We're going to take our thumb, and we're going to just place it over the right nostril. We're going to take our index finger and middle finger. We'll place it at the third eye, which leaves our ring finger and our pinky finger to hover over the third nostril. We're going to practice alternate nostril breathing to find some equilibrium within our body. Taking a couple long, smooth, deep breaths. When you're ready, let's go ahead and plug that right nostril. We'll leave the left nostril open. Take a nice big inhale through the left nostril. At the top of that inhale, pause, swap fingers. So we'll plug the left, we'll open up the right by removing the thumb and exhale through the right. When you're ready, take a nice big inhale through the right. And slow and steady, plug that right, exhale through the left. Inhaling through left. Swapping, exhaling through right. Inhale right. Exhale left. Inhale left. Exhale right. Now continue with the pace of your breath, alternate nostril breathing. Go ahead and take 2 more cycles of breath, alternate nostril breathing. And at the end of that second exhale, go ahead and return the hands back to where they were, either on your lap or on the mat. We'll take a moment to quietly observe the body. Notice how much more open and expansive the breath has become. Feel the blanket of peace and serenity draped over you, allowing the mind to fully be present and prepare for our practice. All right, let's go ahead and move forward. So again, if you are on your back, you'll go ahead and stay on your back. If you have not come to your back, let's go ahead and lay down. I'm gonna start in a supine position, but then I'm going to sit back up so that I can read through the directions. So everyone should remain on their back though. All right, so we come to our back, and your feet should be about as wide as they would be if you were standing. And the feet should be, the toes should be pointed up. So I don't want the feet to fall open like we do in Savasana. I don't want the feet to turn in. I want the feet to be pointed up, and the feet should be about hips distance, if not a little bit wider apart. And then we'll go ahead and place our arms down by our side, backs of the hands are on the mat. So get yourself in a comfortable position. If laying on your back like that is super uncomfortable, you can bend your knees and bring the soles of your feet to the ground. You can bring a pillow underneath your head. You can bring a prop underneath your knees. So go ahead and make whatever adjustments you need to make to get yourself comfortable in this supine position. All right, so with your feet pointed up, go ahead and spread your toes to activate the muscles of your legs. Close your eyes if you'd like. And right here, just take a couple of deep breaths. So what we're going to do is we're going to tune into our psoas. So what happens in the psoas muscles is that they intertwine or are interwoven with our respiratory diaphragm. So this is, it is often compared to what happens when you interlace your fingers. So you can think about that visual. This means that when your diaphragm moves, your psoas is affected by that movement. So that's what we're going to try and trigger here. Often when we do any type of abdominal work, we unnecessarily tug on the psoas. But if we engage the deep core muscles and the spine stabilizers, then the psoas doesn't have to work so hard. And we can let go of any gripping or tension that we may be holding on to unnecessarily. So you're going to take your hands and place them on your hip points. So those frontal hip bones that you feel. And on an exhale, try and engage the muscle between your hands. This is your transverse abdominals. You draw the hip points towards one another. If you notice any actual movement here, it should be very subtle and slight. Try and keep that engagement as you breathe. As you take a couple of deep breaths here with that engagement, you'll notice some movement of the breath, primarily in your rib cage and upper abdomen here. Your lower body is doing the work. So our hands are on our hip points, drawing our hip points towards one another as we engage the muscles between our hands. When you're ready, you're going to lift one of your heels just an inch or two away from the floor, and then you'll lower it down. You'll alternate lifting one heel at a time, and the goal here is to try and keep your hip points as level as you can as you continue to lift and lower one heel at a time, keeping those transverse abdominal muscles engaged. And moving nice and slowly here, really tuning into what's happening in the body. So this is certainly not a practice for going through the motions. This is a practice for turning inward and seeing what's happening within your own body structure. Here, notice if your hips tend to veer off to one side when you lift a leg. And if they do, readjust so that they're once again level. And focus on really activating your deep abdominals on that side. We'll take a couple more rounds here. Why don't you do 2 more on the right, 2 more on the left, lifting those heels, doing our best to keep the hips nice and level, keeping that engagement as you breathe. When you're ready, you're going to go ahead and slide your hands up just a bit so they're just above your hip points, so moving them up towards your shoulders. Now press down and see if you can feel your psoas engage here as you continue to lift and lower one heel at a time while working to keep the pelvis level and stable. Again, here, as we're doing in all of these hip practices, begin noticing if you observe any nuanced differences from side to side, and again, trying to keep the hips nice and level. All right, keep the hands where they are, lower both heels, maybe windshield wiper the heels or the feet back and forth. Okay, let's return back to where we were. So our hands just above our hip points. And now just for contrast, we're going to keep our hands pressing down. And now lift your right leg up quickly. Without that deep abdominal engagement, you may feel a sense of gripping, like a tugging on that psoas muscle. That's what you want to avoid, and that's what deep abdominal engagement and slow, mindful movements helps us to counteract. So just to reestablish that engagement between your hip points, lift and lower your heels one at a time, slowly and mindfully, a couple more times. All right, so if you were not able to draw the connection, if you didn't quite feel your psoas, that's okay. If you want to go back and review the last 5 minutes or so of this video to try one more time, you can. or you can move on. So what we're going to do is we're going to warm up the body for some peak poses and some sun salutations. So go ahead and draw the knees in towards your chest. If you're going to move forward, gently rock from side to side. As you just gently begin to feel into your body, make sure that the breath is still present, it's still fluid, there's still a rhythm, maybe connecting like we did last week to that ujjayi breath. All right, go ahead and roll onto one side of your body. Push yourself up to a comfortable seated position, and then let's spin around and come into tabletop pose. All right, squaring up in tabletop. Shoulders are right above the wrists and the hips are above the knees. We'll take a big inhale together. And exhale, round the back. Drop the heels towards, the sit bones towards the heel, chin to the chest. Inhale, lifting the tailbone, lifting the crown of the head, stretching through the front body. Exhale, rounding through cat. Inhale, lifting in cow. Moving with the flow of your breath. Slowly stretching out the spine. Bringing some movement and fluidity into the hips. And most importantly, linking our breath and movement. Let's go ahead and take 5 more cycles of breath to continue with cat and cow, or maybe move to a child's pose or hip circles, whatever feels best. We'll meet back in a neutral tabletop in 5 slow, steady cycles of breath. All right, coming back to a tabletop pose. Now from here, let's go ahead. Make sure that our knees are rooted, and we're going to let's step the left foot forward first. So we're going to come into a low lunge, once again to reconnect with that psoas muscle. So go ahead and come into a low lunge. If you need to double up your mat or throw a blanket underneath, go ahead and do so. And then we'll come into this low lunge. Except for this low lunge today, we're not going to go ahead and bring it way forward like we normally do. The focus right now is on that right hip flexor. We're going to try something a little bit different. So the psoas here is definitely stretched in this position, but let's try to come at it from a different angle, like I said. So we're going to back out of, instead of pushing the pelvis forward, we're going to back out of the lunge a bit, which we're in right now. And now engage your hip points, drawing them towards one another, allowing that psoas to ungrip. Move your thighs back, especially our back thigh. Even lift your back inner thigh up. That lift up through our low belly so that we don't feel like we're collapsing on the front thigh. Once you have this nice neutral alignment, then you can begin to sink a little bit deeper into our stretch. Feel like you're stretching your legs apart from one another. Feel like you're pulling your mat and trying to break it in two. And when you're ready, you're going to go ahead and lift up through your arms. And here with the arms framing the head, try and imagine that psoas lengthening in both directions as you stretch down through your legs and up through your spine. Taking a couple of deep breaths here. This should feel very different than the low lunges that we've been practicing, a different engagement here. Try and stay here for one more cycle of breath. Good. Gently release. Bringing the hands down. Now we'll switch the legs out and come into the second side. So I'm going to show you in case maybe you didn't feel it the first time. Again, this should feel much different than the regular low lunges that we're doing. So go ahead and get your body into the low lunge position. Go ahead and come up. Now again, instead of pushing the pelvis forward like we usually do, we're going to back off a little bit. We're going to try and engage between our hip points, drawing them towards one another and allowing the psoas to ungrip. Now moving our thighs back, especially the back thigh, the left thigh. Lift your back inner thigh up. Keep that lift through your low belly a bit. You should feel that engagement. And then when you're ready, then we'll begin to sink just a little bit deeper, moving nice and slowly. Should feel like we're stretching our legs apart, like we're trying to split our mat in half. When you're ready, lifting those arms up, feel the psoas stretch, lengthen down through the hips and up through the fingertips. Big, deep breaths. Last cycle of breath. And exhale. Go ahead and frame that front right foot. We'll send the right foot back to meet left. We'll tuck our toes under, send our hips up high, take a couple of deep breaths in downward dog. Walk your dog, sway your hips, reconnect with your breath. When you're ready, gently bend your knees. And we'll travel up to the top of our mat, meeting and standing forward fold. Let's ragdoll those arms, let our head hang heavy, everything melting off our shoulders and neck, keeping a micro bend in those knees. When you're ready, place your hands on your shins and inhale, lift halfway, a nice flat back, engaging that core. Exhale, fold. Inhale, lifting halfway, heart forward, gaze forward. Exhale, fold. One more time. Inhale, lifting halfway, and fold. When you're ready, inhale, lift all the way, arms reaching up, and exhale, hands down in front of your hearts. Slow, steady, moving with your breath. Inhale, draw the arms out and up. Exhale, folding forward. Inhale, lifting halfway. And exhale, fold. Plant the hands, send the feet back through plank. On your exhale, slowly lower through chaturanga. Inhale, lift in cobra. Exhale, tuck the toes, send the hips up high. 2 deep breaths in down dog. At the end of that second exhale, traveling up to the top of your mat. Inhaling, lifting halfway when you get there. Exhaling, fold. Inhaling, rise, arms sweeping out and up. Exhale, let the breath settle as the hands meet in front of the heart. One more time together. Inhale, drawing everything up, lengthening. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, lift halfway. And exhale, fold. Plant the hands, send the feet back through plank. Exhale, lower through chaturanga. Inhale, lift in cobra. Exhale, tuck the toes, send the hips up high, 2 deep breaths and down dog. At the end of that second exhale, bend the knees, travel to the top of your mat. Inhale, lift halfway, and exhale, fold. Inhale, rise, arms sweeping out and up. Exhale, hands down in front of your heart. One more time with your own breath. All right. Once you've completed that third sun salutation, you're going to grab your block and maybe move over towards a wall. All right. So we're going to come to a balancing pose before we try some other peak poses. So again, you can come to a wall if you'd like a little extra support. We're going to come onto this block. So it is necessary to elevate, to lift up. And that's why I suggest maybe coming onto or coming towards a wall. I'm not going to use a wall, but if I were, the wall could be here or it could be in front of me. All right, so we're going to step onto the block with one of our feet. Doesn't matter which one. This exercise is going to help us ungrip our psoas muscle. So placing a yoga block about a foot or so away from the wall, step 1 foot up onto the block and bring your hand to the wall for balance. Then you're going to lift the hip point of your hanging leg. So as you come here and your legs are unequal, whichever one is the non-block leg, we'll say, that hip point is going to obviously shift down because just the weight of gravity. So you're going to go ahead and do your best to lift that hip point of your hanging leg so that it's level with your other hip point. Your 2 frontal hip bones should be level. So even if you need to go ahead and use your hands to feel, make sure that those hip bones are level. Now narrow your 2 frontal hip bones towards one another. So draw those hip bones towards the midline. Also engage between your pubic bone and your navel. So you're going to engage kind of where the front of your pants would come together. Then keeping your hip points level and an engagement in that deep low belly, you're going to gently swing your leg free back and forth. You have to keep that engagement though to slowly begin to find some softening in the psoas muscle. If you're fortunate enough to have somebody at home, a spouse or a son or daughter or whoever's around and they would like to help you, they can also be the ones to move this leg for you. So you can completely work on the engagement happening in your hip pointers and that deep abdominal so that you can freely swing this leg. Try and keep the support in your belly and let your legs swing like a pendulum. Here we want to avoid swinging the upper body back and forth. So just moving that lower body. Good. We'll just do a couple more swings here. Now, if we've kept that engagement, we should feel something different as we come off the block. So go ahead and come off of the block. Let's just place our hands on our hips just to target where the mind is going. And then we'll go ahead and close our eyes. And see that when you tune in, can you feel the difference between left and right side? Obviously, there's a little bit of reverberation there from movement, but we should feel a different openness in the leg that was swinging. Or maybe you feel more gripping, more tightness, resistance in the leg that was stagnant. So with our eyes closed, listening to the breath, see if you can tune into this asymmetry for a moment. Sometimes people describe the swinging leg as feeling longer. That might be something that you're feeling, might feel lighter. All right, let's equal things out, right? So we'll come on to the other side now. We'll go ahead and stand onto the block with the other foot. Again, wall is here or wall is either side. All right, so we have that hanging leg. I want to take my hip flexor. I want to take my hips and level them off. So they're nice and square with one another. Not one leg is not sagging, and then I'm going to draw them in towards each other and engage between my pubic bone and my navel. So everything is engaged between my hands. Once I feel that I can breathe with this engagement, then I'll begin to find some movement here. Long, full, deep breaths. Good. Just a couple more swings back and forth like a pendulum. Keeping everything engaged. Last breath. Coming off of our block. Stand tall in mountain pose and feel through the psoas muscles. Feel that release, that unlocking, ungripping. So as we move forward, we'll move through some peak poses, and I will try and draw the connection between our hips and our emotion. So the reason we focus on the psoas muscle in this fourth class is because of all the gripping and all the holding that we do in our hips. So our hips are considered the second chakra, and that second chakra deals with our emotions. And so there is a connection between our physical body and how tight things can be, and then how we feel on an emotional level. So thinking about all that we know about what happens to our hips from constant sitting, from hunching over, from not having good posture, we know all those things affect our hips. And in turn, those things also affect our emotions and our balance in our energetic body. So as we move through these poses, I'll also try and give you some insight as to how the two are connected, and then what we can do physically to help ourselves emotionally. All right, so go ahead. Move the props away, go head back towards your mat. All right, standing nice and tall at the top of your mat. Inhale, draw your arms out and up. And exhale, forward fold. Good. From here, let's step the right foot back. Bring that foot at a 45-degree angle or so, setting our body up for warrior two. Once the body's in a warrior two position, inhale, open in warrior two. Good, bend in that front leg. We've got an equal distribution between front and back leg. Fingers are spread out nice and wide. Shoulders are down our back, away from our ears. And we're going to use warrior two to come into side angle pose. So bending that front arm, our left arm, and inhaling that right arm. The right arm comes right above our nose. Nice long lines of energy here. Try and pull the right rib cage back, pull the left rib cage forward. Big, full, deep breaths in side angle pose. Feel that opening in that inner left hip. Feel the stretching along our hamstrings and our inner right leg. Full deep breath here. Good. Slowly cartwheel the arms down. We're going to bring that right knee down, and you may want to grab for your blocks here. We're going to come into half split pose. So with our left leg straight, we're going to come back onto our heel. And we're going to try and keep the back nice and flat as we try and curl that pinky toe towards our hearts. You should feel a deep stretch through the back of that left leg. Try and square off your hips. Breathe nice and deeply. Last cycle of breath. Good. Slowly begin to shift the weight forward into that front left foot. Now you're going to come to facing the long edge of your mat. And we're going to try to come into squat or malasana pose. So this will give a good inner leg stretch while also flexing the knees and hips deeply. So we'll come onto the soles of our feet as best as we can, and if we need to, we can come off of our legs, which I know, because of our joints, it can be difficult. Ideally, we want to come to a position that looks similar to this, and we can also come to a prop if that will help our body. Again, like I talked about last week, it's important just to target our body into the shape. It doesn't have to be exactly ideal, but if we start to bring our body into that shape, over time our body will recognize that and our muscles will allow us to get there. So whatever works for you. We're going to take a couple of long, smooth breaths in malasana and squat pose. So we know that stress causes our body to contract and curl inwards, a natural action to protect our vital organs. Hip openers will counter this energetic closing, which means that there's a good chance they will affect your mental state and perception of well-being for the better. The psoas muscle, which we've targeted today, is the deepest muscle of the human body, affecting our structural balance, muscular integrity, flexibility, strength, range of motion, joint mobility, and organ functioning. So the psoas is the only muscle to connect our spine to our legs. It is responsible for holding us upright and allows us to lift our back legs in order to walk. A healthy functioning psoas stabilizes the spine and provides support through the trunk, forming a shell for the vital organs of the abdominal core. Take 5 more deep breaths here. The psoas is connected to the diaphragm through connective tissue or fascia, which affects both our breath and fear reflex. This is because the psoas is directly linked to the reptilian brain, the most ancient interior part of the brain stem and spinal cord. Long before the spoken word or organized capacity of the cortex developed, the reptilian brain, known for its survival instincts, maintained our essential core functioning. Our fast-paced modern lifestyle, which runs on adrenaline of our sympathetic nervous system, chronically triggers and tightens the psoas, making it literally ready to run or fight. The psoas helps you to spring into action or curl up into a protective ball. So take those thoughts with you for a moment as we transition. We're going to pivot back around to face the front of our mat, and we're going to bring this left knee to the left wrist. We'll extend the right leg back, coming into pigeon pose. So we have 2 options here, sleeping pigeon or king pigeon. Sleeping pigeon is we'll square off the hips, we'll look over the left shoulder, making sure that the right leg is straight, all the way down to the toes. We'll stay on our hands, we'll move to our forearms, or maybe we'll rest our head down, coming into sleeping pigeon pose, making sure that we feel the stretch in our outer left hip. If you want to try and come into king pigeon pose, maybe we'll grab for our block, and we'll place our right hand on the block or on the floor, and slowly making sure that the hips are nice and square. We're going to reach around and either aim the hand towards our foot, or we'll grab for that foot, opening up a little bit deeper in that right hip flexor and psoas. Spending long, smooth breath here, thinking about some of that information about that deepest muscle in our body, connecting the only muscle that connects our spine with our legs. Thinking about how stress affects that psoas muscle and where that psoas muscle naturally came from in human history, thinking about that fight or flight and what we do on a daily basis and how that might be affecting our bodies. Taking 2 more deep breaths. And the end of that second exhale, wherever you're at, you're slowly going to unwind. Let's come into a tabletop to transition. Find movement into that left hip. Take 3 cycles of breath to find what your body needs. All right, after that third exhale, slowly begin to shift back into tabletop pose. Now we're going to send our left foot forward. We're going to send our right foot forward. And we're going to prepare ourselves for Warrior 2 now on this side. Once you're ready for Warrior 2, you'll go ahead and inhale, lift. Find your Warrior 2 pose. Taking a couple of deep breaths here. And then bending that front arm, reaching into side angle pose, breathing through the stretch. Good. Slowly cartwheel the arms down, frame that front right knee, right leg. Go ahead, come down to the left knee, and let's find that half splits pose. So coming onto the heel of the right foot, pulling that right pinky toe towards the heart, keeping the back nice and flat, keeping the hips square, breathing through the back of that right leg. Last cycle of breath. Now we're going to pivot towards the long edge of our mat once again, and we'll come back into that squat. Come into any variation that you need to, knowing we'll be here for about 10 cycles of breath. So if we constantly contract the psoas muscle due to stress or tension, the muscle eventually begins to shorten, leading to a host of painful conditions, including low back pain, sciatica, disc problems, scoliosis, hip degeneration, knee pain, menstrual pain, infertility, and digestive problems. Tight psoas not only creates structural problems, it constricts the organs, puts pressure on the nerves, interferes with the fluid movement, and impairs diaphragmatic breathing. In fact, the psoas is so intimately involved in such basic physical and emotional reactions that a chronically tightened psoas continually signals your body that you're in danger, eventually exhausting the adrenal glands and depleting the immune system. In this situation, it's exacerbated by many things in our modern lifestyle, from car seats to constrictive clothing, from chairs to shoes that distort our posture, curtail our natural movements, and further constrict our psoas. So the first step in cultivating a healthy psoas is to release unnecessary tension. But to work with the psoas is not to try and control the muscle, but to cultivate the awareness necessary for sensing its messages. This involves making a conscious choice to becoming somatically aware. A relaxed psoas is the mark of play and creative expression. Instead of the contracted psoas ready to run or fight, the relaxed and released psoas is ready instead to lengthen and open to dance. In many yoga poses, the thighs can't fully rotate outward unless the psoas releases. A released psoas allows the front of the thighs to lengthen and the leg to move independently from the pelvis, enhancing the deepening of the lift of the entire torso and the heart. So by cultivating a healthy psoas, we can rekindle our body's vital energies by learning to reconnect with the life force of the universe. In the Taoist tradition, the psoas is spoken of as the seat or the muscle of the soul and surrounded the lower major energy center of the body. A flexible and strong psoas grounds us and allows subtle energies to flow through the bones, muscles, and joints. The psoas, by conducting energy, grounds us to the earth, just as grounding wire prevents shocks and eliminates static on a radio. Freed and grounded, the spine can then awaken. So we'll take one last breath here. And then as we pivot back around to the front of our mat, now the right knee is going to find its way to the right wrist. The left leg extends long. We look back, make sure that that left leg is long, and then we'll come into sleeping pigeon or king pigeon. Whichever you did on the first side, I suggest you do to the second side, and we'll be here for about 10 cycles of breath. At the end of your 10th breath or your next breath, go ahead and gently release, coming back into tabletop pose, and again, finding movement. All right, coming down to now a seated position on your mat. A little twist before we find our final place of peace here. So we'll start with our legs out in front of us. And then let's draw the right leg in, bringing the sole of the right foot to the inside of that left leg. I'm sorry, the sole of the foot's on the ground, but the foot is towards the left leg. So wherever it falls, maybe towards the ankle, towards the calf, towards the knee, or in towards the thigh. Wherever you're at, make sure that you can sit up nice and tall on both sit bones. And then we're going to take our left elbow, we're going to hook it on our right knee. We'll take our right hand and place it behind us. Take a nice big inhale and lengthen through your spine. And then exhale, twist. Looking out over the right shoulder, keeping the hips square, breathing in your twists. Take one final cycle of breath here. And as you exhale, gently release. Good. Swapping our legs. Right leg extended, left leg bent. Outer right elbow hooks, left hand behind us, right behind that sacrum. Inhale, lift. And exhale, twist, looking over the left shoulder now. Big full breath. Last cycle of breath. And exhale, release. Good. Let's go ahead and all come down onto our backs. Of course, when you get there, draw the knees in towards the chest. Gently rock from side to side. Then bend the knees, grab for the ankles, the shins, or the outsides of your feet. Coming into happy baby pose, gently rocking from side to side. When you're ready, gently release both legs down the mat. Release your arms at your side, close your eyes, release that long intentional breath. Feel your way into Savasana. slowly begin to deepen your breath. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. Gently nod your head from side to side. Roll in your wrists, roll in your ankles. And when you're ready, roll on to the right side of your body and pause there in the fetal position. Savasana is an opportunity to allow new things to be. Tapping into something greater for yourself begins with the awareness that something greater even exists and to recognize it. In Savasana, you can tap into that expansiveness and allow yourself to envision or inwardly inquire about your higher purpose and what you want to have as a real possibility. Like peeling an onion, Savasana is a process of letting go layer by layer in a series of openings, which occur with increasing depth. When you release fully into Savasana, you get to look within and discover something profound about yourself. You come to know yourself, not what you think, not what you feel, not what you've accomplished, but who you truthfully are at your essence. So when you're ready, go ahead and help yourself up to a comfortable seated position, and we'll meet with our hands together in front of our hearts. As always, thank you all for tuning in to moving your bodies with me through our practice, albeit virtually. Next week, we'll round out our 5-week hip sequence, and we will finalize with an advanced hip sequence class. But for now, it's with gratitude that I close this week's practice by saying namaste. Thank you, everybody. Stay well.